So today I'm going to be doing a starting playthrough and a tutorial of some basic ideas that we seem to be getting a lot of questions on in Final Upgrade. This game is in early access, which means that there are some bugs, that some things will not always work, so keep that in mind. If you find a bug, the game has a Discord server, and please jump on and report the bug using the guidelines for doing so. But for now, I'm going to show you how to start the game. I'm going to show you some of the options and what they mean so you can make an informed choice on where you want to begin. The first thing I'm going to start with is actually not in the new game, it's actually in the options. So if you go to gameplay, you will notice here the max station size and the max ship size are set very high. That's because I was doing some testing, and I'm going to leave it there so that it doesn't mess with my other games. But that's why those are there, so that um, but your game might be set lower. So my ships may not work for your ships if the max ship size is over the 2000 that it starts at. So I wanted to put that in. I'm going to also turn off camera shake on explosion because that makes me a little nauseous. So I'm going to turn that off. We're going to start new game. So let's go over what these different settings do. The tutorials and hints are just helpful little bits that you get, and if you've never played the game, I definitely suggest you have them on. I'm not going to have them on because they will interfere with me showing you stuff, so I'm going to turn them off. For the sake of this run through, I'm going to turn on abundant resources. This changes the amount of resources you will get from a planet, and it will, if it's off, it will half the resources you get, so keep that in mind. Hyperspace cost jump, or cost multiplier, changes how expensive a hyper jump is, or an FTL jump is. I'm going to keep it low for the sake of this tutorial, but that is a slider. Wall segment built from 1 cube. This tells you how expensive it is to construct things. So I'm getting 8 walls from 1 resource, basically. Whereas if you put it down, you're getting 1 for 1. You can turn peaceful mode on or off. I'm going to turn it off because I'm also going to show combat later in this run. Damage multiplier increases the amount of damage that that weapons do for both you and the enemy. Green faction, red faction, and ancient aggression triggers. So basically, with these off, they won't become aggressive unless you attack. I'm going to turn them on because certain aspects of the game are, it's important to explain what these are and what they aren't, so I'm going to turn them on for now. And player level is this number that's down here. It is, this is a save that the game is currently running, so this will go away when I start up, and I'll go back to 1. But it basically is affected by how much research you have, how high your colonies are. There are many different things that influence your player level, so keep that in mind. I'm going to put in a pre-made seed that I came up with for my previous playthrough that was good, and that will let me concentrate more on explaining things as opposed to figuring out where stuff is. So that is the basic run through for the this. I'm going to explain what these are in game because it'll be easier to show you. So I'm going to hit go. So this is what you start with. You have your menus over here. You have your map. This whole thing fills in with planets, so keep that in mind. Your trade routes and mining routes, your ship lists tell you like where your ships are and what they're doing and all of that kind of stuff. Your research tree, which is quite big, and follows a lot of different things, and we'll walk you through kind of what you need in the beginning to kind of know what you're doing. Your blueprints and modules, which I'll get to later in this walkthrough. A build menu, which lets you build things, and I will be showing that in the first system that we go to. Your resource zones, which are these. If you turn on off, you'll be able to see them. And your add resource zone and resize resource zone and such. You have your colonies, which will list your colonies when you have them. Production statistics, your energy statistics, faction aggression. So you can see here what how far up you are the aggression with certain things. Um, Red faction is sectors that you control. They will be displayed in blue on the map. Um, if they are gray, you have not explored them. If they are white, you have explored them but have not claimed them. If they are blue, then you own them. So like Earth is blue. Um, Aggression for green is based on machines. Machines are anything under the machines tab and anything under the cannons tab. So these last two tabs. Nothing else seems to, as of right now, to contribute to machines for the sake of aggression. And then player level is a bunch of different things. You'll see it be going up as we play the game and unlock things and all of that. So this is your basic ship. There are batteries, that's these green things. This is your core. This is a refinery. What's it? Extractor, sorry. These are tubes. Then you've got these quantum storages, which are these yellows. They hold items. You have these generators here. This is a construction cannon. These are tanks. These are research. And these are more batteries. And this is just a decorative thing. So at this point, and these are machines, you'll see them working around. I'll point things out as we go, but I just wanted to go through the, oh, and these blue things are hatches. It means that robots can go in and out, but basically nothing else can. So keep that in mind. This is what you can see right away, Venus and Mars. They give you different resources. So my suggestion is that we jump to Mars, which will give us iron, which is basically your basic construction material for most things in the game. So let me, at this point, I'm sorry, I did not explain that. You jump by right-clicking on the core, and it'll bring up a bunch of ship options. One of them was jump to sector. Jump to sector lets you jump to different sectors in the map. Local jump lets you jump around the map. This is basically how you move around a map when you need to move. So keep that in mind. Autologic we'll get to later, and the rest of the stuff we'll get to later. But right now we're going to hit claim sector. That lets us own the sector, and it will change your display. This is your colony. This is your planetary resources. This shows you how many items you have in reserve, and it shows you how many items a second you're getting. This item right here is to upgrade the output of this planetary resource. On this side, you see the level, the population, the constant demand, and the order, and I will get to those as the colony levels up. For the first, most building isn't going to be done with the build menu in this setting, but for this I want to give you a general sense of how that's going to work. So I'm going to place a core. A station core or a ship core is the central part of your ship. If it is destroyed, then you will basically lose that ship. It basically becomes derelict and it floats into the void until it disappears. Ship cores cannot be destroyed until all turrets are destroyed. So this is a turret, so this cannot be destroyed until this is destroyed. Keep that in mind. It's basically only relevant for combat, and I will go into that when we get around to actually fighting stuff. But for now, I'm just going to place a station core. I'm going to place the Mars station. So at this point, you see that this doesn't automatically build, and that's because you drag from the core to the thing when you want to build. I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to pause time with spacebar. You can also slow down and speed up time, but I'm going to pause time for a minute, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to build a floor. And cell count, by the way, is this. So each one of these is a cell. It doesn't matter how tall the cell is, and I put that in air quotes. It only matters that there is something in that block, so I'm going to keep that in mind. A quick note. When you are building, if you are building something and your ship is in the way, if you deselect the item and you hit X, the ship will move. This does not stop auto logic functions or any of the other automation, but it will just nudge essentially the ship to the side. So keep that in mind. It is a very useful function, especially when you have multiples of these jumping around autonomously building stuff for you. So I'm going to build that platform. I'm going to go into the build menu. Now, what we want from Mars is we want ore. And the way that there's one good way and then there's one not so great way, and I'm going to explain them both in case you need them for different situations. The best way to pull up a resource from a colony is with a trade hub. So I'm going to place a trade hub. I'm going to right click on the trade hub and I'm going to say teleport raw resources from surface. I am then going to use a tube to move the resource to the extractor, and then I'm going to use another tube to put it into storage. I'm not going to do the other parts that I know I'm going to have to do because I want to show it working in actions. Whenever you build stuff, most of the time the ship will have to jump closer, even if it's within a good distance. It's trying to optimize the move time of your robots. So it moved a little bit closer, and the robots are going to go and run off. The construction cannon is also going to start building. So it's going to build. I'm going to speed up time so that we're not sitting here for a while doing this. So it is done. I got a little ping over here in the corner. These are your alerts. I'm going to right click to get rid of them for now, and I'm going to slow down time. So first off, you will notice that there is no power. So let's grab some batteries. That's just right here. Eventually you will have higher tiers of the batteries, the tanks, and the storages, but you do not right now. So we're just going to use what are called T1 batteries, and I'm just going to pull them out here. Now you will notice something. I can place an item here, but I cannot place an item here. If you build a floor, you will then be able to place an item there. When you place an item, it will place the floor under the machine. So keep that in mind. But basically everything has to be connected to the grid, essentially. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to drag this over and get it building. And I'm going to unpause time. So it's going to jump. I'm going to speed up time. So this has no power. So the way that you transfer power from a one thing to another is you drag from the battery, just left click and drag onto the other battery, and then you decide how much you want to transfer. You can transfer either direction, but I'm just going to fill them up, and you'll see that they get zapped over. So now you will notice that in this machine that all of these are locked. That's because we have not researched how to extract the materials. So let's go talk about the research menu. Your total memory is here, and what is called your free memory is here. You get free memory by leveling up your colonies, and it will give you more and more free memory, but it is a finite resource, so keep that in mind. You can only get a certain amount of free memory from each planet, from each colony. So just keep that in mind. It's not an issue now, but it will come up later. So I'm going to hit the research, and the big ones that are important right this second are iron extraction, which will let you take iron ore and turn it into iron. I am also, for the sake of saving us some time, I'm going to research carbon extraction, which will let you refine carbon ore into carbon, and then carbon ingot, which will let you turn carbon into a more condensed version of carbon. And then I will research the electricity from carbon and electricity from carbon ingots. And I think that that's all I particularly need right now. I will explain a bit more about like the setup of the research tree in a little bit, but I want to get this set up because we cannot do a whole lot until this starts to build. So I'm going to drag, or I'm sorry, this just needs to run. So this is a good time to explain this. See how these computers are now flashing? That is because it is using essentially up your free memory to research this thing. So you can see everything in your queue is displayed as yellow. Everything that you have researched is displayed as green, and the gray is what is free. So I'm going to let that run up. So you can see in here that it has taken iron ore and has pushed it out to here. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to select iron, and it will start to create iron out of the iron ore. So I need to click here, Storages basically do not hold anything until you select a resource type. So I'm going to select iron, and it's going to go, and it's going to start filling this up. If you hold Alt, you can see what it is doing, and at the bottom you can see the production cycle per second. This can use and output 1 iron per second. This will not be the same for all ores, nor will the other machines function the same. So if this is cleared, reset, you'll notice that it will not tell you anything, and there is a reason for that. It is because these different things require different amounts of time to process. If you hold Alt over your storage, you will see that I have 25 iron in there. And obviously we're going to scale this up, but I just wanted to show that right away. We've got some carbon extraction going. I'm going to scale this up a bit now and show you some tube settings. So pneumo tubes let you move items from places to other places. Sorry about that. Tube joints let you move items over. I'll actually show you that. It lets you basically cross tubes with both pipes, which move liquids, and with pneumo tubes. But I will show this here, where I will go like this. And so you'll see that these arrows, this is the direction of the material. So I'm going to right-click the tube, and I'm going to turn these off because I don't want them. And I will drag over like this. So I'm going to speed up time because I don't want to sit here for that right now. And you'll see that this is going in. It's not going anywhere because it doesn't have a storage to go to. So I'm going to show you that now. I'm going to do that, and then I need to remember to set to the what it is storing. And so I'm going to do that again. So it will now pump out that. So I'm going to show you the other. Sometimes tubes do weird things if they don't understand. Oftentimes it is better to take a tube and instead of going into that menu to just drag through the thing to correct the problem. So if I do, I'm going to pause so that I can show you me messing this up. So I'm going to construct, I'm going to speed up time a little bit. So you'll notice that this setting isn't working. You can go into this build menu and drag and it will change the direction. So sometimes when you're doing big things, it is a little easier to drag through than go into every single setting. However, you can also do this thing called copy tube setting, which lets you do exactly what it says on the tin. So say I have these right here and I want them to go this way. I can select this tube setting and hit this and it will copy it over. This option is also in the build menu right here. It is also for the other copied. So I'm going to show you that. So this is set to iron. So if I hit to copy selected storage, I can drag through, but it also works for machines. So even though iron is currently selected, I can also click the machines to get it to do what I want. So you can see that this moves over unimpeded. These can be different items, and they just won't interact. It basically just acts like a junction if you've played Ministry, but there are other games that do the same thing, or this just basically lets you cross the line without them interfering with one another. This also obviously works. This is how you do this with pipes as well when you start dealing with liquids. So now that I have that, and you'll notice that we are out of power, I don't need to set up the stampers yet. I'll set up one stamper so that I have it working while I'm doing something else. So I'm going to set up a stamper, and I'm going to set up a storage for the stamped material to go into. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. The tubes move, I want to say it's 2 or 4 items a second. I will need to double check that with the dev. But generally speaking, a tube will get you most of the, like, there isn't really a throughput problem with tubes as a rule. So I'm going to set iron ingot, and I'm going to set iron. I've not researched iron ingot yet, so I'm going to skip time, or I'm going to speed up time and let those two things finish. And as you see, my level's already 4. It's because every time you research something, your item goes up. Yeah. So I can go in here now, select, oh, it's after that. So once again, I'm a derp. So you can see this starts to work. And you'll notice as you alt tab that the production cycle is 1 per second. It's the same as the extractor. That'll become relevant later because you can just create a line of this, or the extractor to the stamper, and go directly through and not need a storage because there's no backup. And you don't need multiple stampers for multiple extractors. That will become more relevant later. So now that we have our iron pretty well set up, I am going to take a minute to do something else, which I will like later. They want a constant amount of iron, 0.25 a second. So I'm going to set this up so that it can start to build. So I'm going to hit my trade hub, just put it here, and I'm going to build my trade hub. I'm going to right click the hub, and I'm going to select sell to colony. So it is now going to feed that down. You can see this green line coming up. Before I jump to another sector, I'm going to pick up more ore and put it in here. You can drag the ore icon here over to your core, and it will fill up all of your storages with iron ore. So you see all of these are filled up. That way when we get to the next system, we have enough raw materials to build the system. So I'm going to jump to system. And now we are in Venus. You can see that we're going to get carbon ore from this. So I'm going to claim it. So I'm going to right click on the ship. It doesn't have to be on the core. It can be pretty much anywhere. Just if you do it on a storage, you're going to get the storage. But if you do it in like a hatch or a wall, whatever, it's fine. Yeah. So I'm going to hit claim sector. And they're going to want fuel to upgrade theirs. And they're going to want iron ingot. So I'm going to now, instead of building it from scratch here, I'm going to pause time, and I'm going to show you the blueprints menu. There are two separate things called blueprints and modules, and I'm going to explain modules after I show you blueprints. So blueprints are like a sandbox where you can create things. One thing to keep in mind is that when you unpause time to test something happening here, like they've got a pre-built Venus station in the thing, when you test this, if time is running in here, it is also running in the game. So if I leave here, time is running. So also keep that in mind. The basic level in-game blueprints are very useful to understand what is going on in the game for like what is possible. So I'm going to unpause this, and you'll notice that this doesn't use any storages. It just, I have to edit because I have to copy it. So I'm gonna Mars station test. So I'm going to select the iron ore, and I'm going to let that run for a second, and then I'll explain why that's doing that. So you'll notice that it is just pumping out the ore because the tubes lead to nothing, and so they will just drop. Items will first will flow down, but they will also flow off. If there was like a hole here, they would flow off the world. So if I do this, save. So it's just going to flow out the world. That is also true in the real world. I'll show you an example of that once we have some stuff built. But you can see that this is flowing here. It is being picked up by these tubes, being pushed down to the extractors, and then being pushed down here. This hub, even though it's not set, is meant to sell to Colony, which is, in this case, is going to be iron, and it will pick up the items and then forward it into the trade hub to be sold. And then, and when the rest of this is full, it will pump it out to this construction cannon, which will help you in construction. Then it goes down to this. It pumps out the ingots. The ingots are taken in by this, or in by the tubes, and then they are pumped out as iron shells, which is basically an ammo for combat. You will notice that this wall here is to keep the items from going down. Items do not move from side to side unless you've got a tube telling it to do that. They will only flow down. So you'll notice that there is no wall here, and that is fine. So I'm going to bring up the Venus one, which is basically the opposite. You will notice that it will take out the ore and it pumps it through pipes into the extractor, directly into storage, directly into power, and directly into stampers to make ingots. And because this is going to be generating a lot of power, it has your stations up here. Then it has everything else. But also as ships, this can be very useful for figuring out how certain things work. So just keep it in mind if you're having like a hard time figuring out why something's not working. Oftentimes this can give you a good sense of like why something is not working. So I have in here a coal processing, which is very similar but a bit more compact. I'm going to delete this because on this map I do not need it. I'm going to drag over. I'm going to drag over, and you'll notice that my dragging will reconfigure the tube. But I'm also going to delete these and then unconfigure these to take in because I just won't need it. And then I'm going to place these batteries here. So this is just a bit more of a condensed. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit build. And then it's going to let you choose the material you want to build with. So later in the game, if you're like upgrading a combat ship, instead of having to go through and recreate the blueprint with a different material, you can just select the material. Obviously right now all we have is iron, so I'm just going to build with iron. I'm going to drag and I'm going to let this build. So this will eventually be self-sustaining because there are power generators here, but obviously it's not going to get that, so we're going to have to basically give it a jump. So we're going to not drain our ship all the way, but we are going to give it enough of a kick to get it to go. These are set up correctly. So you can see these are going, all the batteries are full, so this is now self-sustaining. It does not need any other help from us, and this will just fill up over time. So now that that's true, we are going to go into this, and we're going to reconfigure this to a higher energy density fuel. That is definitely not what I wanted. And we are going to drag, to transfer items from a station to a ship or from a ship to a station, you can just drag from the storage to a storage, and that will only transfer one storage to the other storage. It's transferring here and then it's dropping through the tubes down. But in order, you can do much faster transfers by grabbing from the core and then dragging onto the research, and it will grab from every container it can and push it over kind of as quickly as it can. It will not fill it up because it is constantly using it, and when you do the transfer, it basically tells it how much it wants, and that's the reason why this isn't actually going to get topped up. So at this point, we're in a good spot. I'm going to do one other thing to save myself some hassle now, which is I'm going to build research stations on top of the power plant. So I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to build this now. The reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want a constant energy drain off of my construction ship, and I can just get rid of these so that that just doesn't happen. And I can replace it with batteries, which is going to help me in a little bit. So I'm going to, we might run out of power. So since I told it to build, if it cannot find, or if it does not have the resource, it jumped away to pick up more of the resource and then jumped back. So it'll happen again. Not quite. So let me jump back to, and let me grab some more iron ore. It's because the power ran out here. Because this has no power generation, it's just running off of batteries. We're going to fix that in a minute. But I'm just going to, for now, feed it a bunch more power so that this is less of an issue. Jump to sector. And I'm going to finish up this building so that I can set and forget. So that's done. It is not flashing because there is not currently any research, and I'm specifically not researching anything because I want to explain the pros and cons of certain researches in a minute, but I want to finish constructing this. So we have plenty of iron coming in. We have it going down to the ship. And we have this building here, as you can see right here. It's slowly ticking up. In order to speed that up, I think I want to divert this up just to make that, just to speed that up just a smidge. So I'm going to do that. So it's now going to fill up twice as fast. I also want to upgrade my ship because this loose storage is not very dense for materials. But before you mess with this ship at all, because if you delete, right now, if you delete this cannon or these robots, you will not be able to build and you will have to start over because this is your last construction vessel and there is no way to fix that. So I am going to drop a construction cannon here and have this iron go into that cannon, and that just gives me a bit of a backup in case I mess something up, which I have definitely done during a playthrough. So now that that's done, I have prepared a blueprint specifically for this upgrade so that I didn't have to sit here and design it like I did before. So this is what I came up with. So instead of just having it loose, it feeds into these storage containers. So I'm going to assign to the ship, and then I'm going to go to manage and hit reconstruct from, and that's the second time it's done that. I'm not sure why this blueprint doesn't want to work with this ship, other than maybe the items are in the way. So I'm going to have to manually rebuild this thing. So I'm just going to go do that real quick because it's not going to take me too much longer. As soon as I remember how I did it. So it goes up and then it comes out. Okay, so this needs to feed up. And then I need to make sure that these are actually going into here. These need to be set to the proper resource. This is now going to have quantum storage in it. So there and there. And I'm going to draw tubes. And you might be thinking, why 3 tubes? And it's just so that this shoves up or shoves down faster, so that these can fill a little bit quicker and get to the cannon. I'm going to draw like this. And I'm going to copy the storages and stuff. And then I'm going to So it's going to build. What I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to get rid of this, is I'm going to have this feed up and I'm going to have this feed down. In order for robots to build, actually do construction, you need to give them a resource zone to do that in. So over here, you'll see the resource zone, and you'll see that these resource zones are set for iron, and they will pick, the robots will be able to pick up the iron from here. If the resource zone goes over a tube, they can pick up out of the tube, but they cannot take out of a quantum storage, so keep that in mind. So that's going to fill up. I'm out of floating iron. I'm actually just straight up out of iron. So I'm going to just transfer a bunch right now. So you can see that fills up. Obviously I'm at 4x speed, so keep that in mind. And some of these didn't fill in, so I'm going to do this. And you may be saying, why do you need so many batteries? And it's because to claim new sectors, some sectors require significantly more energy, and you want to be able to do that. So I just filled in the area with extra batteries. So I'm going to speed this up so it can finish. Now the robots couldn't get in there because there's no hatch, but I just finished it off with a cannon, so that's not a big deal. I am going to save myself some hassle and grab the rest of whatever I can to fill this up. And then I'm going to grab the iron and fill this up. And we're out of power. I am going to fix this very shortly, I promise. But for now, let's give it a bit of energy because we're about to jump to the other sector. So we need to give power to here so that we don't have to keep doing this. So one thing we need to do is be able to set up a storage for power to be delivered, or for carbon to be delivered. So I'm going to set up a power station and with power generators. So I'm going to just put 2 here. And then I'm going to draw tubes to those power stations, like so. I'm going to have this be built. I'm going to want this to be carbon ingot, and a carbon ingot, and then I'm going to grab, you must select whatever power it's going to use, so I'm going to select carbon, copy to thing. So we have a place for the carbon to go, but we have to get it here. There are 2 ways to do that. I'm going to show you the first way with trade routes, and then I'm going to show you with transportation relays. They both have their pros and their cons, but I'm going to show you, for one direction, I'm going to show you traders, and in the other direction, I'm going to show you transportation relays. So first off, we have to build a trade ship. So I'm going to go and just grab from the library the base T1 trader. It is a pretty good idea to have, there are pros and cons to having tanks and physical storage in all of your traders. That way that you don't have a bottleneck on one or the other. It is also viable to do one traders just for tanks and traders just for materials. It's just dependent on how you want to balance stuff. So I'm going to leave that up to you. I have come to prefer hybrid traders, but it is not required that you do that. So that is up. You can see we have the workings of a basic construction or shipyard here, because this cannon will just auto build anything within the system that it wants, or that it can. I'm going to once again speed this up. And we're out of power again. So I'm going to A, power the trader, and I'm B, going to power the station. So we have a trader. We need to get carbon from here, from these storages, to here. And the way you do that is by going into and grabbing routes. So up here, there's your second button down. It'll bring up every item in the game. You select the item that you want to actually do the trade. So I'm going to grab a carbon ingot. I'm going to drag these. The bottom number is how much of that item it has storage for it, and the top is how many of those items it actually has. So I'm going to drag and go like this. Now this next part is very important. If a trader ship does not have the room to transport whatever the minimum batch is, it will not do the action because it cannot. So this can hold 50 of an item. This is set to a batch of 50, so this can only only ships that can carry 50 items will do this route. I am going to preemptively do something. Since there's only 50 items in the storage, I'm going to kick this down to 40 so that when there are 10 items left in the storage, it will go grab another batch. That way that there is no delay in power. And so now we get to the next part, which is auto logic. There are several different types of auto logic. If you click on a ship core, you see auto logic right here. If you click auto logic, you have a couple different options. Auto builder is the ship will just go out and build whatever needs building. Energy carrier is a ship will jump around and transfer energy to ships or stations that need them. And we'll go through that in a minute because we'll need it in a second. Asteroid mining is just for miners, and I'll go through that later, but the one we want right now is trade ships. So I'm going to hit trade. I'm going to make sure time is slowed down so you can actually see it. And you see it basically picked up a job. And once again, if you alt, you can see the program running and what it's doing and why it's doing it. And it will jump. It'll transfer the items. And then it will jump back and transfer those items back to the storages. You will also notice that the zone changed as well. This is also true for storage containers. These tanks will change, the quantum storages will change to fit it. So a ship will only transfer one type of item at a time, and it will change the zones and containers to do that route. So also keep that in mind. Traders and miners, generally it's better to keep one resource to a trader, mostly because you're just not going to have a choice. If you're using the auto trader function, it is just going to do that. It's just going to reassign the storage as it needs to. So yeah, let's, from here, we're actually at a good place to stop. Oh, I was going to show you transportation hubs. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll end this, and we will start again when we get to the next part. This place needs, actually, we need to get iron ingots here as a constant thing. Now I could set up a trader, and that's a perfectly valid thing. And in fact, if this were really far away, that would be probably the better option. But since it is kind of close, there is a better option, which is to use transportation hubs or transportation relays. So that's right here. You put one down. I'm going to actually just put it here. And I'm going to build it. What transportation relays do is it essentially will transport within a sector or to another sector. And how far it can transport in terms of sectors is based on research, which is down here. Right here, you can upgrade it several times, and you can increase the distance that stuff can transport. For the sake of this, I'm not going to upgrade it. I'm just going to show you how to do it, because it'll also show you how to do it in the future when you can't get a connection far enough to do the thing. I'm going to take it up, and I'm going to put it directly into the relay, and it's going to build. So here I need to put down another relay. Then I'm going to put down a storage, and then I'm going to put down a trade hub so that I can push down this. I use storages in front of trade hubs to push down in case I have to change something on the other side. It gives me a bit of leeway in something needing to be changed so that my constant demand doesn't get messed with. There is no like lasting problem. It just makes your population fall and it will delay your next upgrade and kind of things like that. It isn't super critical. I just find it's a little bit, it makes your life just a smidge smoother. So I'm going to jump this to sector. Actually, what I'm going to do, since I can, is I'm going to set this to auto builder. And so you're going to see it jump over here after it does the teleport. There it is. And it will start to auto build. And this will just jump wherever it wants to build. I'm going to set this to the correct thing. Now you will notice that this cannot connect to here because my max distance is too far. So what we're going to do is at Earth, I'm going to build a essentially relay for the relays. So I'm going to build that. I'm going to build here. I'm going to build here. And I'm going to just make a chain of I'm going to nudge that to the side. These need power, so keep that in mind. I'm going to show you energy traders in response to that. And actually, I'm just going to do that right now to save myself the heartache later. So I'm going to go into the build blueprints. I'm going to go into, I'm going to use my own trader. And I'm going to build an energy carrier there. Now is a good time to talk about energy policy. So after that gets built up, I'm going to slow down time. If you click on a station core, and this is only true for stations, you can set what is called the energy policy. So if you go to energy policy, recharge station means that the station wants power. Give ships power means that this station is willing to give out power, and this is a do not trade option, which is occasionally useful for things later in the game. So I'm going to hit give ships power. I'm going to right click on the energy trader, hit auto logic, and hit energy carrier. It does not have energy. It needs some energy to start with, otherwise it will get confused about what it's doing. So I'm going to auto logic and hit energy trader. So it wants a boatload of energy, which this station unfortunately does not have. So I'm going to just solve a problem now, which is enough power storage. For the foreseeable future, this will be my energy station, so I'm just gonna solve that problem before it becomes one. Okay, so you'll see that it jumped off and it actually filled this up. When these get down to a certain amount, the energy trader will jump in, fill it up, and jump back out and do something else. Now that we have relays, now that we have a relay set up, we're going to connect the relay. When you right-click the relay, it'll bring up this screen. You must select an item in order to send it and what you want to do. So I want to send away from this station to the other station. When you connect this, it'll bring up the map. If you want to just go connect back to the sector, you can just re-click connect to this sector. But I want it to go to Earth, and I want it to go to this one. That will auto-configure this one to be able to accept that item. I'm going to select this and do the same thing, send iron ingot, connect, and then go to Mars, or to Venus, and I'm going to hit connect. And then I'm going to select push down. So you can see the items going. So that is your most basic setup for early game. This is how you get going on the first couple of sectors. The next part will be about research and kind of what you're looking for in research. It'll be about modules and about how to kind of expand out from here. But I hope that you found this very useful, and I will talk to you guys later.